Hi folks, welcome to NASA's 500mm lens of lies. Now folks, what this video is about is these two cameras here. The bottom one, a 70mm Hasselblad camera, and the top one, a 500mm Hasselblad camera. Now, NASA and all their shills, Birdie Slack and another idiot, Phase 52, both claim that these two cameras were sent to the moon. We are mainly going to deal with this camera here, the 500mm lens camera that Birdie Slack and Phase 52 claim was sent to the moon. Now, the brilliant Expattaffy is going to disprove that. He's going to prove that neither of these two cameras were ever sent to the moon. It's nothing but a pack of lies by NASA. And I'm going to provide the irrefutable evidence for that. In the meantime, let's take a look at this camera here, shall we? Now, what you can see, this camera was initially made by Hasselblad with no viewer at all, because they couldn't view the cameras while they were on their chest. But what they're claiming here now, for long distance photos, they claim they fitted a viewer on the side, as displayed by the arrow. Now, anyone with any common sense know that is completely impractical, and for the following reasons. Now, take a look at this one here. This is a genuine photo from way back in the early 70s. Apollo 16 astronaut supposed to be training with this camera. This is a photo that the idiot Phase 52 gave me, and he claims this is proof they took it to the moon. Well, I'll be providing irrefutable evidence that they did not. Now, looking at this astronaut holding this camera, let's have a closer look at him, shall we? Now, what you've got here is an Apollo 16 astronaut training, and he's holding this long lens camera, and he's supposed to be viewing through what they claim to be a small ring, just a ring, on the side of the camera, and he's viewing that through his darkened visor. Now, anyone with any common sense would know that's impossible. Just think what a sniper does with his rifle or his gun if he's going to shoot somebody way off. What he's got on that rifle is telescopic sights to bring the object up close. Now, that little ring on the side, according to the nutters, it's not a glass in there, it's just a ring, and he's viewing it through the ring. He'd do a lot better just looking at along the top of the camera, wouldn't he? But another point to note here is just look at the distance from that little ring to where his eye would be inside the visor. From that ring to the back of the camera must be about 4 inches. And from his visor to his eyes inside the visor must be at least 2 inches. That makes the distance from his eye to that little ring of around about 6 to 7 inches. Now, what I done with my binoculars, I took my binoculars, put them right into my eyes, and I could see clearly a long distance away. But then I moved them back just about 2 inches from my eyes, and I couldn't see a thing through the binoculars. Another thing I done, I put on a pair of sunglasses, and I brought the binoculars right up to the sunglasses, but due to the darkened glass, I could see nothing through the binoculars at all. And the same will apply to this astronaut here. Now folks, coming back to the full-size photo here, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this photo is fake and was never photographed in the early 70s. It was, because further study of the photo confirms it was taken maybe 70, 71. And here's the proof coming up. Now folks, my first line of inquiry with that photo was, I cropped it as you can see. My first line of inquiry was, what is this vehicle? What is this vehicle that's in the photo? And after doing some study and discussions with a mate of mine, we soon came up with the correct vehicle. And here it is, folks. It's a 1969 Dodge, a Dodge van. You'll see the resemblance in the front windscreen of this and what's in that photo. So this vehicle is confirming that that photo was taken maybe 69, 70, 71. So folks, now we've established that this was at one time a genuine photo taken from the early 70s. One must ask the question, why would NASA Photoshop and alter what was supposed to be a genuine photo from the early 70s? Because this photo, folks, has been photoshopped. It's been altered in the year 2008, and the proof is coming up of that. Now, we've had many cases in the past where mentally insane idiots like the twat who was always speaking through his Astrobrand, commenting, don't be so stupid, idiot, how can it be photoshopped if it was taken in the 70s? Because they never had Photoshop in the 70s, you stupid idiot. Just shows what mentally insane numbskulls they are, don't they? They just don't understand that a photo made in the 70s could easily be photoshopped after Photoshop was introduced in 1989. Now folks, what we've got here is a screenshot of that photo, and it's taken with all the data, metadata for that photo, and I'll give you clear views of it. Okay, look at the data here. On the right you've got a column there with the HXD data for this photo. It shows you in there that it's been photoshopped. You won't recognize it here on the screen small like this, so I'll enlarge that column for you. There you are folks, you can see there Adobe Photoshop Element 3 Windows 2008 11th of the 11th, and Adobe down at the bottom. Now one must ask the question, why would NASA want to Adobe Photoshop a photo that was genuine, taken in the early 70s? There must be a reason, folks. Now what we've got here is some of the exit data for that photo. It shows Adobe Photoshop Elements Windows 3 and the date and time that it was photoshopped. As you can see, 2008 11th of the 11th 0903. And this data here, what it shows down at the bottom is the date that I downloaded this from the net. Now folks, as I said, if this photo was initially taken in the early 70s, as claimed, then the question must be, why would they Photoshop it in 2008? There must be a reason. There must be an alteration to this photo. So could it be this? Could they have copied and pasted this little ring that they call an eyepiece? Whatever it was, folks, something was done to it, and this could be a clue about that photo being altered. Take a look at this. We all know what was popular in the 70s, don't we? We had gollywogs everywhere. Look at this. Could this be one of Kip Teake's whistleblower's clues again? A gollywog with two eyes and a mouth, and one eye shut and the other open, and he's winking at us, same as he's used in other photos that I have shown. Even a photo of a pig winking at us. Now folks, this is what the brilliant Expattaffy calls an eye catcher. Something to attract your attention, to tell you to examine the photos. Something that Bertie Slack and his other supporters, Brian Pop Robson and Screwball Screwy calls pareidolia. So, let's see if we can find anything strange about this photo, shall we? And let's see if that face is definitely an eye-catcher. Okay, take a look at these two cameras here. The top one, as we've shown earlier on, it looks like a blue tint on it, doesn't it? It's supposed to be the one that went for Apollo 16. And they claimed they were silver to protect them from the radiation. But why does this one look blue? Now, the bottom one is the one supposed to be for Apollo 15. And they claim they brought this back from the moon. And where I got this photo from, folks, is only a couple of weeks ago, it appeared in the local news that NASA was auctioning it off. They were selling it. Now, who would believe that something as valuable as this camera, if it went to the moon, who would believe they would be auctioning it off? The only auction that would get into would be a mock auction. Anything like that would be a valuable item for their museum. Now, come on. If they'll bring back a rover fender and stick in the museum, don't you think that this camera would be priceless in the museum? No. They're not selling that at all. That's just a publicity exercise for people to say, oh look, that camera is for sale. Oh, they must have gone to the moon because they brought that back. That's all it is a publicity exercise, folks. Now, as shown earlier, they claim they had a little ring on the side of the camera, as you can see. And according to the nutter Screwball Screwy, they had a little sight, maybe like a little pip of metal sticking out on the front, on the lens, that they lined that sight up with the hole in the ring on the side of the camera. Now, why are these two different? All you've got on the bottom one is a little strip of black tape. And what you've got on the top one is a strip of white tape with a little black smudge in it. But there is something else not noticed in this photo here, but you'll notice it in the next photo coming up. Now, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, the best place to do any sighting would be along the top. And that's what you've got on both these cameras. Look, you've got a little flat metal bar along the top of each. Now, don't you think that would be a better place for the viewer? On the top? Instead of that ring they got on the side, which, as I said earlier on, and I'm prepared to stick by it, there's no way they could look through that little ring and line it up with anything and take photos of far distant mountains. No way, folks. But there's something extra coming up now. Now, folks, take a look at this camera here. Here's that Hasselblad camera that they're supposed to have taken on all missions to the moon. The only difference with this is the lens. It hasn't got the same lens as the ones they're supposed to have taken to the moon. But what the dealers here showed me is they fitted in this little viewing glass on the side. There's a shoe on the side of the camera. And they said this is a viewing glass for short distant viewing. Surprisingly enough, we never seen this on any of the Hasselblad cameras used by the astronauts on the moon, did we? Not one of them show it. But they confirmed it's just for short viewing. Now look what I've done here. I've combined that camera with a genuine eyepiece to the one that is shown on the long lens camera that the astronaut is supposed to be practicing with. And as you can see, it's entirely different. The glass you can see through on the left side. You can't see through any glass on the one on the right. It's in a different position, and it's got a flat surface and a sloping top and a sloping bottom that looks like a hexagonal nut just stuck on with plasticine. and I'll explain why that was done after. Now folks, here's a real close-up of the top camera. And you remember what I said earlier on? This photo was photoshopped in 2008. And I said there must be a reason for it. And you remember that face of the golly? Could that be a clue to NASA's folly? Take a look at the camera here. Look at the arrows I've got marked A and B. A is the top of the round barrel of the lens, or lens attachment. B is the top of the camera, the flat top of the camera. Look how small that distance is. And on the side, where I've got the arrow marked C, look at the distance there from the side of the camera to the barrel. Now that distance must only be about 3 or 4 millimeters. But the clue, folks, here it is. Now look at his thumb there. How big is a man's thumb in a padded, air-inflated glove? Now my thumb is about 1 inch diameter. Now look at that thumb there. There's the clue, folks. It's directly in line of the sight through the ring. There's no way anybody can see anything through that because the thumb is blocking the view. There's the clue, folks. There's the clue. A whistleblower's clue telling you that photo is fake. So there you are, Mr. Cornelius Screwy. The brilliant Expattaffy has just proven that you are screwy. You never had the brains to spot that? You haven't got the brains of a domestic cat. There's more proof that this camera never went to the moon. And no proof that it ever took any photos of the moon. And further proof will be coming up in Volume 2 and Volume 3. Now, coming back to my claim that this eyepiece on the side of this camera is fake and totally impractical, with somebody looking through a tinted visor, I'm going to provide the proof of that. Just take a look at the next photo coming up. Now folks, take a look at this photo. Genuine photo from the early 70s. It's for Apollo 16, so he's most probably one of these Apollo 16 astronauts. And what is he doing? He's got one of those long lens cameras, and he's taking photos of distant mountains. Now, let's show you a better photo of him taking those photos, shall we? Here you are. He's standing on the edge of a canyon by the look of it. Just look how far down it is to the river down below. Must be a couple of 1,000 feet, that distance. So they're up on the top of one ridge, filming distant mountains, which you can see top of the photo. Obviously, photos of mountains that could be used to fake the lunar landscape. And interesting enough, folks, just look what we've got here. We've got a photo of this astronaut using that long-range lens camera, that's 500mm one. And something very strange, can't you see it? He's definitely not looking through that little ring on the left side of the camera, is he? And he hasn't got a darkened visor to look through, but what has he got? How come this one has got what appears to be at least a 4-inch magnifying glass fitted to the front and right side of the lens? Now, that thing, you can imagine that being practical, very useful, capable of doing the job. A lot better than that little small ring on the left-hand side, don't you think? So there you are, folks. There's something that rouses suspicion that things are not correct with this camera, not as we were told in the first case with the astronaut. And I wonder what this guy is photographing here. Could it be this? Well, do any of you recognize that? The same mountain that's in the Apollo photos. Exactly the same mountain, folks. And filmed here at Cinder Lake City, Flagstaff, Arizona. Now folks, coming back to this photo here with this astronaut for Apollo 16 practicing with this long lens 500mm camera. Remember earlier on I told you I'm going to provide evidence that this camera never went to the moon and it never took any photos on the moon. And as you've seen, I've shown you the photo has been photoshopped. Now before I go any further, let me say I put a question to some NASA nutcases. Any of you spot something that's familiar with the first three missions? Apollo 11, 12 and 14. They've all got one thing in common. I asked the nutters, do any of you know what it is? Only one answered. That's an idiot, Paul White, that I've dubbed Paul the Pratt. He came back and said, they all went to the moon. What a bloody idiot. Now, something here that nobody else had ever mentioned, only the brilliant Expattaffy. If you examine the photos for Apollo 11, Apollo 12 and Apollo 14, you will find they've got one thing in common, the three of them, and that is a lack of mountings. All the landscapes are flat landscapes with sky at the back and different versions of landscape, but none of them show mountains. That's one thing strange about Apollo 11, 12 and 14. Why no mountains? Okay, now look at this camera again. This is the photo I had sent to me from Hasselblad, UK. It's the same camera they're supposed to have taken to the moon for Apollo 11, 12 and 14. The only difference you can see in this one is the lens is different to the ones that NASA displays. And I'm only showing this photo to show you what the clip is for. The shoe on the side is to enable a small glass viewer to be placed into it. However, we never seen one case in Apollo 11, 12 or 14, or even the rest of them, where this glass was fitted to the camera. It was never needed because the camera was always supposed to be on their chest. I'm only showing this here to show you what that little shoe was for. Okay? Now, as I told you, according to the manufacturers for Hasselblad, that is just a short viewer because this camera doesn't have a telephoto lens on it. It's just a short range viewer. But they never used it in Apollo 11, 12 or 14 because they were all short distance photos. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give you my hypothesis brought about by critical thinking, using your head and putting your brain into action. I'm going to give you my theory as to what happened with these cameras back 69, 70, 71 and 72. Yes, it's going to be my opinion. You can all comment, you can all put forward your opinions, but in the end, after volume 3, we'll soon find out whose opinion is correct, whose opinion is credible. That's what we'll find out after volume 3, folks. And there's one thing I love doing, is leading NASA nutters along by the nose, getting them to spout their mouths off, and then suddenly, bang, play the trump card, and slap them in the face with a wet fish. And what does it do? It makes them run off like dogs with their tails between their legs. Okay folks, let's get on with my opinion as to what happened. Now, as I told you, Apollo 11, 12 and 14 have got something in common: lack of mountains, just flat landscapes with the sky, black sky behind, and just small amounts of detail like the limbs or equipment or the astronauts, all taken short distance by the camera they took with them, the bottom one here. And as you can see, they never had that viewer on the side. A viewer which I told you is just for short distance viewing. But the camera above, it's the same camera, just it's got the 500mm long lens on it. There's no photos in Apollo 11 or 12 or 14 where they claim they had long distance photos done or taken with a 500mm lens. None at all, folks. Now look at the two cameras here. They're the same cameras really, the only difference being the lens. Now the bottom one, the 70mm, as I've shown you, it got that shoe on the side for taking a small eyeglass for short distance viewing. But the lens on the top camera is the 500mm long distance lens, and that lens is fitted with a sight just like the end of a gun, of a rifle. It's fitted with a sight on the top. Here you are, I'll show it you here. There you are, folks. There's the photo I sent to Hasselblad asking them what's this on the top, and they confirmed it's the long distance sight for lining up the camera and the lens with distant objects. Now I wonder why they put some tape on the left side of this lens here. Are they trying to hide the fact that there's no sight really on there when they just showed one on that Apollo astronaut practicing? And as I showed you with that photo, they've got a fake sight on the side taped with some white tape, and most probably a little screw sticking through it to make it out that it is a sight. But the official manufacturer's sight on this long lens is on the top. So what we've got with the astronaut is a mixture of two sights. A short distance one on the side of the camera and a long distance one on the top. Well folks, there's my first step in providing evidence that that 500mm camera never went to the moon and took photos on the moon. Yes, I agree, it's contentious evidence at the moment, but we'll wait and see what you got to say when I deliver the irrefutable evidence, folks. Irrefutable evidence that's backed up by contentious evidence here. So there you are, folks. That's the end of volume 1. Let's hope you enjoyed the video. Let me say, you're all entitled to pass comments, to post your own theories, your own opinions, but just remember, the conclusion of volume 3 will be a deciding factor in whose opinion bears the most credibility. It will also draw a line between what is known as stupid and sensible. Okay folks, I've dealt with the first part of this video that proves that camera, the 500mm lens, never went to the moon. Dealt with the camera showing that it's practically impossible for an astronaut to have used it as they display, especially with that darkened visor. So now we come on to part 2 of proving that camera never went to the moon. Okay folks, we're now with this supplement for this video, NASA's Lens of Lies, part 1 of 3. This supplement is going to provide further evidence that this camera and this lens never went to the moon. New discoveries by the brilliant Expattaffy that was missed first time around. Now folks, first notice the stance of this astronaut. As I told you before, I'm always suspicious about astronauts standing with bent legs. Each time we've seen an astronaut standing with bent legs in the past, I've proven the photos to be fake. Now just ask yourself, why would anyone stand like this? You try it yourself. Stand with bent legs and see how long you can do it. While you are standing like that, the stress is on your muscles. Standing up straight with your legs straight the stress is on your bones, which is a lot easier. So, perhaps some of you can give me a reason for this standing with bent legs. Now, here we are, folks. Here's the next piece of evidence I found with that astronaut. Take a look at these two photos here. On the right, you've got an astronaut where you can see clearly his face inside the visor. And just remember, that one is upright. He's not tilting back. But look at the one on the left for this astronaut we're concerned about. He is tilting back. And just notice what happens to your eyes when you tilt your head back. Your eyes go up. Now just look at the levels here. Top of the helmet, bottom of the helmet, and where the eye level is for the one on the right. Now it should be roughly the same for the one on the left. His eyes are not in line with the line of sight through the camera. Now, somebody even suggested that in that visor, below the gold visor, they can see a little face. Well, it's a puny little face compared to the one on the right, isn't it? That's proven that if that was intended to be a little face, you can see the line of sight through the camera is pointing to his nose, not his eyes. If that is a little face in there, and if it is a little face, it's obviously an airbrushed in one. 100% CGI, folks. But looking at the sight, the line of sight through the camera as indicated by the blue arrow, it seems to be pointing to the bottom of the visor, which would be his mouth or his chin. 100% fake, folks. 100% fake, and a little bit more to come, proving whistleblowers' clues and CGI coming up now. Now, if you study this astronaut's thumb, look at the red arrows. It seems to be showing a face there. The two top arrows are two eyes, the middle arrow shows a nose, and the bottom arrow shows what could be a mouth. That's a little face airbrushed in, inserted in by the whistleblowers' clues, whistleblowers telling us that it is fake. Something they've done 100 times before, inserting faces. And now look at it again, this time indicated by the yellow arrows. What you seem to have there is an eye, the left arrow, a nose, the right arrow, and the bottom arrow, a mouth. Looks like the face of a teddy bear, which we know the whistleblowers have used in an Apollo 11 photo. More clues from the whistleblowers. A little face telling you, look at this photo, it's fake. There you are, folks. Additional evidence proving that this camera and this photo is 100% fake, and this camera never went to the moon.